realised that childcare operators are highly profitable. We've got the opportunity to develop reliably the commercial property real estate, but also move into the childcare operation. And our purpose is to be the #1 childcare developer and operator in Australia, most trusted, respected and reputable.
Hi everyone, welcome to another executive interview. Today we are joined by John Nguyen, Managing Director at Devio, a company that is poised to redefine Australia's childcare industry. Devio's journey from residential development to a vertically integrated approach really reflects a commitment to excellence and innovation. Thanks for joining me today, John.
Thanks for having me.
Amazing. John, could you elaborate on Devio's transition from residential development to a vertically integrated approach in the childcare industry, and how does this shift actually align with your long-term vision?
Yeah. So we're a startup property development company. We began in the residential sector, and we faced some difficulties, post-pandemic. It was a tough market.
Right.
Construction costs were going up. So we had to look for alternative property development strategies.
Yeah.
And that's where we came across childcare. So we realized it was a very resilient sector, and it's much less affected by a lot of those factors that I've touched upon there. So it's a very niche sector, little understood. That's where the huge opportunity lies for us though. So, it's a sector that has a high demand, low supply, and the government support is actually increasing. So it's got a lot of things going for it, and that underpins the potential for the stable and growth within the sector.
Amazing.
Yeah, and as we research further, we're talking about vertical integration, we realised that childcare operators are highly profitable. So, we've got the opportunity to develop reliably the commercial property real estate, but also move into the childcare operations. Okay, so it'll be this machine that just feeds itself.
Yeah.
So that's really exciting for us. And our purpose is to be the #1 childcare developer and operator in Australia, most trusted, respected and reputable. So the Childcare Real Estate Fund is the first stage of us delivering on this vision.
Amazing. That's brilliant, John. Fascinating insights there. Now let's dive deeper into the opportunities that are available within the childcare sector. So with the Australian childcare industry valued at $17 billion, what specific market gaps or opportunities does Devio aim to capitalize on?
Yeah. So the Australian childcare market is significant and growing. However, there are areas of vast undersupply across the country. Right. So we know that there's up to 9 million Australians who live in areas of childcare undersupply. And our target, and so we've got a lot of opportunity there, but our specific targets will be the capital cities and larger rural centres. That's what the majority of the population is, and you can support that with the workforce. Yeah. And the other thing with the industry, the childcare industry, is highly fragmented. So many different operators, a lot of independent players. So it's a perfect time for a player to come in and generate these reliable and consistent returns for investors. And our recent acquisitions include Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane. And all of our sites have attracted strong operators. So in turn, that gives a good rent, and then the end value of the property remains high as well.
Amazing, that's great. Now, how does Devio leverage its unique blend of property development and operational expertise to maintain a competitive edge in the industry?
Yeah. So we believe that's our unique selling point, because we have the experience in the property development, but also personal experience in the childcare operations side as well. Okay, so personally, I'm an approved provider for childcare services. So that's a registered licensed position. So you have to go through rigorous testing and to get to that license. And then my other business partner, he's had 18 years experience in operating childcare centres. So, we've got in-depth knowledge of the industry, the inner workings, and this. So that helps with the developments, but it also, with this expertise in the operations, it's allowed us to gain the trust of, the larger, bigger brands, because they understand that we understand how they think, and that they trust us. So building those partnerships, we can secure leases with them for our properties. So strong leases, which means strong rent, strong property values. Yeah.
Amazing. Now, let's talk about the numbers. So investors are always interested in the return. So could you outline the targeted IRR of 20 to 23% for your fund and explain how do you actually plan to achieve these returns?
Yeah. So our core strategy will be to purchase residential property close to market value. So, when we go out to look at these potential sites, they're all like normal standard homes. So that's one of the unique things about a childcare development. We're not competing with like high-rise developers. It's really competing with residential property owners.
Right.
So we can actually pick these sites up at a pretty fair price. Our strategy is get these properties, we get the approval, DA, building permits, and then we construct them as a purpose-built childcare centre. Okay, so with our experience, 18 plus years in this sector, we're very efficient in getting the design, the approval, and the construction process. And since we have the in-depth knowledge of the childcare operations as well, the centres that we design and build, they're highly sought after by the operators, as I've touched on before.
Right.
Because we know how they like the flow. We understand the flow and the operational side. So really, we're always spot on when we deliver our projects. So how do we get our returns? So one of the recent case study is just past June 2023, Spring Farm in New South Wales. So that's southwest Sydney. Project was constructed on time, within budget, and we achieved an IRR of 30%. So, we're targeting 2023, that particular project, we're at 30. So we did better than expected. Great example, great result for us. But yeah, so essentially that's how we do it. We're just going to buy these sites at market value, and then get that uplift in the commercial rent and valuations.
Amazing. That's very impressive, John. Now let's talk about the risk. So what risk mitigation strategies does Devio employ to mitigate potential challenges in the childcare sector, but particularly in the light of, let's say, regulatory complexities and market fluctuations?
Yeah. Good question. Childcare is a very niche sector, so it takes a lot of experience and know-how to be able to develop and design these centres that will comply. So our team comprises of highly experienced consultants, who specialise in childcare design. So we're always confident that we'll get a good outcome each time. Okay, so that goes, starts with the town planners, architects, engineers, childcare experts. They all work in collaboration during the design phase to make sure our designs will comply with the regulations.
Right.
Now, during the site selection process, part of the due diligence, so we look at the planning and the zoning, those are standard. But on top of that, we also look at the demand and supply for childcare in that area. And we look at things like population growth expectations and how many new centres are actually coming online. And look at that pipeline so that we can factor all that in. So we're very strict on the selection criteria, and we've got to allow for that contingency buffer to ride out any of those market fluctuations, that may occur. So, it's all a probabilities game. You've got to stack everything in your favour, but yeah, we're very, very strict on the criteria. I guess one of the most significant risks in this type of development is the approval phase. Okay, there's a lot of red tape. So going through councils and then, typical development, say a residential building, you go through council, get it approved, and pretty much it ends there. But with childcare, there's an extra layer on top. You have to get approved by the childcare authority. Right. So they'll go through the property and just make sure that everything's compliant, everything's safe. It's a good environment for the kids, and that's something that we put a lot of focus on. So we bring on childcare expert consultants through that design phase, so that we're making sure that we cover all those points, and so that the regulators are always changing their sort of outlook and perspectives on what's optimal for a centre. So we only bring on consultants that are up to date, know exactly what the current perspective on the approval process is. We'll get them in early, so that way we're ahead of the game. We're not rolling these centres out and then we find out later that, we need to change this and amend this, and and reconfigure that.
Yeah.
Which, if you do that, that's inefficient. You actually end up, losing potential income because your centre becomes smaller. So we get in front of it to make sure that we get a good result at the end.
Amazing. That's a great approach, John, for sure.
Thanks.
Now, lastly, let's look towards the future. So looking ahead, what are your plans for future growth and expansion within the childcare sector? Are there any specific regions or market segments that you're targeting for further development?
Yeah. Well, our investment thesis for this first childcare fund is fairly simple, just to develop and sell childcare sites. Okay, so and then get the return for our investors. However, our longer term plans are to hold a portfolio of childcare centres and then return that rental income as dividends to our investors. Then in parallel to that, we'll run our childcare brand. So we'll have the operations and a side by side.
Yeah.
And the future around that is very inspiring. Okay, so we believe we can deliver a model around Australia to help service families around the country. And we're also working on some, other business models where we're going to deliver childcare and education services to the special needs sector. So that'll be, something that we're really working hard on. And it's going to take a long time to get right, understandably, because it's a very special group of kids that need that help, and you need a lot of specialised services to integrate and surround that. But that's something that we are working on. That's kind of further down the pipeline. But yeah, that's something that's sort of motivating us and keeping us passionate as well. So, our aims for the next 5 years to have 50 premium childcare centres across the east coast of Australia, and then eventually 100 centres around Australia, about the 10-year mark. So the outlook's, really exciting for us.
Amazing. Definitely. We'll be keeping tabs on the progress of Devio moving forward. For those who are interested in getting in touch with the team at Devio, please see the details at the side of your screen or in the description of this video. Once again, thank you, John, for coming for this interview and sharing wonderful insights about the work that you and your team are doing.
Thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.